Hey everybody, it's Chris, and I have been looking at Heroes of Faerun, and I've been looking at the subclasses, and it's time to talk Winter Walker Ranger. And of course, it's always a loaded subject to talk about Rangers, but let's get into this one. This is the only Ranger subclass in this book. It says, withstands the horrors of frigid wastelands, Winter Walkers hone their craft in the bleak and frozen wilds of places like Icewind Dale. These ruthless, rhymed rangers hunt monsters that haunt Arctic wastelands, eventually becoming frigid terrors themselves. Winter Walkers are well-versed in the phenomena of Icewind Dale, including the latent magic of fallen Netherese cities, endemic monsters like Yetis and Cragcats, and the rising threat of Underdark invaders. Due to their cold pragmatism, terrifying magic, and mastery of the region, Winter Walkers are regarded with equal parts respect and fear. 10 towns' citizens say that Winter Walkers' frequent exposure to malignant entities gives them their fearsome powers. Many reghead nomads, on the other hand, believe the nature spirits bestow on Winter Walkers a unique curse. Alright, so the online reaction to this subclass has not been good. And I just wanted to mention that before we get into the features, because it does affect my tone as I go through these things. But let's get into the features. We're going to start at level 3. They get 3 things at level 3, which not all Rangers do. We're going to start with Frigid Explorer. The text in white is what's in the book. The text in yellow are just my notes. And it says, we get Biting Cold, damage from your weapon attacks, Ranger spells, and Ranger features, ignores resistance to cold damage. It says Frost Resistance, you have resistance to cold damage. And Polar Strikes, when you hit a creature with an attack roll using a weapon, you can deal an extra 1d4 cold damage to the target, which can take this extra damage only once per turn. When you reach Ranger level 11, this extra damage increases to a d6. So the Polar Strikes part of Frigid Explorer is basically dreadful strikes from Fey Wanderer, except switch psychic damage to cold damage. And usually what I would normally expect is that you're attacking one enemy, and as long as you hit them at least once on your turn, then it's 2.5 DPR, and then eventually 3.5 DPR. I will point out that if you do attack more than one target, you can do this damage more than once on your turn. You can just only do it once to one target per turn. And this isn't a lot of damage, but it's okay. Frost Resistance is thematically appropriate and also okay. It's not huge. And Biting Cold is actually pretty good. Cold resistance is really common as a resistance, and we're already doing cold damage. So this Ranger will be doing cold damage all the time. Maybe not a lot, but that doesn't mean you want it halved. So yeah, I don't think this is bad at all as a 3rd level feature. In level 3, we get Hunter's Rime. It says, Ice rhymes you and your prey, protecting you and hindering them. When you cast Hunter's Mark, you gain temporary hit points equal to a d10 plus your Ranger level. Additionally, when a creature is marked by your Hunter's Mark, it can't take the disengage action. And so we're going to be able to use this twice without spell slots when we get it, and eventually 6 times. And of course, if we want, we can use it more than 6 times. If we're casting Hunter's Mark with spell slots, don't know if we'll ever get into that situation, but that option is there. And the scaling here is pretty good. I mean, I'm not thrilled that they did another X plus level temporary hit points every so often feature in the game, because there are a lot of them already. But mechanically, this is decent. I've seen some negative reaction to this because it requires you to cast Hunter's Mark, and I don't get that because it doesn't last only while you have Hunter's Mark active. So you can give yourself these temporary hit points, whenever. If you happen to be concentrating on something else in combat, then you might have to wait until the combat's over. But, I mean, in between combats, you can cast Hunter's Mark, get the temporary hit points, drop your Hunter's Mark, you still have the temporary hit points. And this makes this in line with other features that give this kind of temporary hit point thing. But, seriously, at level 3, I'm casting Hunter's Mark as a Ranger. I know that there's issues with favored enemy, and definitely the way with the base Ranger, there are features there that enhance favored enemy, and they just aren't strong enough to make favored enemy worth using as like your primary attack feature at higher levels. But that's higher level. I mean, at level 3, I'm definitely using Hunter's Mark. So I think this is good at level 3. And I think at higher levels it's good too. Because worst case scenario, I don't want to use Hunter's Mark ever. So I have all these uses of favored enemy. I have no use for them. And now I do. Outside of combat, give myself a bunch of temporary hit points. So I think this is a decent feature. Not mechanically what I would like, though. I just want them to stop with the temporary hit points on everything. Like, just stop. but I'm not saying that temporary hit points are bad. Like, mechanically, they're decent. And so let's look at the third feature, which is extra spells. And here's the Winter Walker spells. I'm going to have some things to say about these. When you reach a ranger level specified in the Winter Walker spells table, you thereafter always have the listed spells prepared. And at 3rd level, we're going to get Ice Knife, 5th level Hold Person, 9th level Remove Curse, 13th level Ice Storm, 17th level Cone of Cold. And, I mean, I don't want to get mad at the designers here, because I get why they're giving us Ice Knife at level 3, because it's the cold spell, and this is the cold ranger. But let's be honest, a 3rd level ranger does not want to cast Ice Knife. You'll never cast Ice Knife with a ranger. I don't see casting it. And when we get Ice Storm and Cone of Cold, I wouldn't be casting them either, because even if I need an AoE at those levels, I've got Conjure Barrage. I'm a ranger, and Conjure Barrage is a good area of effect cone. Way better than Ice Storm or Cone of Cold. So I wouldn't cast those either. And Hold Person, it's not a great spell for ranger. It's using up our action. We want to be doing the attack action with our action. Never mind the fact we can't cast it at the same time as Hunter's Mark. So I don't see casting that a whole lot either. That leaves Remove Curse, and Remove Curse is a spell that you just don't need very often. But you sometimes need it, and a lot of people don't prepare it because they don't have room for it, and you might have it in that kind of situation, which, believe it or not, makes Remove Curse the strongest spell on this list for the Ranger, and yes, this is a bad list. Bad list of spells. I get why they chose these spells, I understand. But this is a bad list. But I will note that we've got 2 subclasses in the Player's Handbook for Ranger that have no spells. So this isn't worse than having no spells. So let's keep it in perspective. Because if we just ignore the extra spells and we look at Frigid Explorer, that's not a ribbon. And Hunter's Rime, that's not a ribbon either. No ribbon. We get 2 features, real features. And if I look at these and compare them to the other subclasses, definitely better than the Hunter. Definitely better than the Fey Wanderer. So we're probably talking average at level 3. Because I'd say probably worse than the Gloomstalker and the Beastmaster. So middle of the road, level 3 for this subclass. Let's get to level 7 and we have a different story. So level 7, we get Fortifying Soul. It says, your experience surviving harrowing environments allows you to bolster your allies in addition to yourself. As a magic action, choose a number of creatures you can see equal to your wisdom modifier, minimum of 1. Each chosen creature regains hit points equal to a d10 plus your ranger level, and has advantage on saving throws to avoid or end the frightened condition for 1 hour. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. And we're probably talking 2 to 3 creatures here, and we're restoring about 13 points of damage. That's pretty close to a 1st level Cure Wounds. And then we have advantage on frightened saves, which, I mean, it's not useless, but it's not strong. Limiting this feature to once per long rest, it seems pretty harsh to me, considering it's a fairly mediocre magic action. I mean, I'll use it, right? It's probably worth my action some of the time, but once per long rest, I mean, it's not that strong that it deserves to be made that limited. What I would have liked to have seen here is wisdom modifier times per long rest, and I think this would have been at least close to average. As it is, it's not close to average. This is a weak 7th level feature. It's not worthless because I'll use it, and when I use it, it's okay. but I'm only going to use it once per long rest, and it is not strong enough to justify that kind of limitation. So not good at level 7. Let's move on to level 11. Level 11 is Chilling Retribution. It says, when a creature hits you with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to force the creature to make a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. On a failed save, the target has the stun condition until the end of your next turn, and while the target is stunned, its speed is reduced to 0. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, and regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. You see, this one they did wisdom modifier per long rest, and good thing. If this was once per long rest, it would be terrible too. But they did the right thing here and gave it the right number of uses. Because a reaction to impose stunned and immobilized on a failed save, probably 2 to 3 times per long rest, is not bad. It's usable less often than something like Stunning Strike for monks, a lot less often, but the duration is a little bit longer since it lasts to the end of your next turn. It hits a slightly better saving throw, though that's debatable at really high levels, but Wisdom is normally considered better than Constitution. And it also mobilizes, because Stun doesn't make your speed 0, but this makes your speed 0. Though Stunning Strike does have a little bit of a debuff. If they make their save, this has nothing. But the limiting factor here is still the uses, but there's a really good chance that you can use all of these every day. This also technically doesn't have a range. I mean, the range is whatever the creature attacking you is, but if something shoots you from a long way away, then it has a good range against them. And most of the time, I would think that when you get hit in combat, it's because some creature achieved melee with you and hit you. And I think that's probably the kind of creatures you'll end up using it again the most. I'm going to get on my soapbox here, and I'm going to say Ranger subclasses need stronger 11th level features across the board. But this is definitely stronger than Superior Hunter's Prey and Stalker's Fury, and probably not as good as Fey Reinforcements or Bestial Fury. So that puts it right in the middle. It is an average 11th level feature for Rangers as far as Ranger subclasses go. So here's their 15th level feature, Frozen Haunt. When you cast Hunter's Mark, you can adopt a ghostly snowy form. Uh-oh, right? Uh-oh, we got a 15th level Ranger feature that requires you to cast Hunter's Mark to use it. Let's keep going. This form lasts until the spell ends, and while you're in this form, you gain the following benefits. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest, unless you expend a level 4 plus spell slot, no action required. So we get 2 benefits here. First, we have Frozen Soul, and just remember, these effects occur while you are concentrating on the Hunter's Mark that you enhance with Frozen Haunt. You have immunity to cold damage. When you first adopt this form, and at the start of each of your subsequent turns, each creature of your choice in a 15-foot emanation originating from you takes 2d4 cold damage. Partially incorporeal, you have immunity to the grapple, prone, and restrain conditions. You can move through creatures and objects as if they were difficult terrain, but you take 1d10 force damage if you end your turn inside a creature or object. If the form ends while you're inside a creature or object, you're shunted to the nearest unoccupied space. All right, so the elephant in the room here is we have a 15th level Ranger feature that requires that you cast Hunter's Mark to use it, and this is like an in-combat thing. So that this would mean that we would need to concentrate on Hunter's Mark in combat. Now, it's no resource cost to use it because we have way more uses of Favored Enemy than we would ever use at 15th level. So, using one of our 5 uses is no big deal. The question is, do we want to cast Hunter's Mark in combat at 15th level? And I think there is a negative reaction to this online because players see a 15th level feature that enhances Hunter's Mark, and they just immediately react negatively, right? Once they see that it requires you casting Hunter's Mark, they stop reading. Or they've already set in their mind that it's bad, and it doesn't matter what it says after that. But I'm not in that camp. As far as I'm concerned, there are really 2 ways Ranger subclasses can be designed to make playing high-level Rangers a better experience. The first is you just make the 11th and 15th level features have nothing to do with Hunter's Mark, but just stronger than they have been. And if the subclass features at 11 and 15 are strong enough, makes making a ranger at higher levels worthwhile, and you just forget that you ever had Hunter's Mark. The second is to have the features that actually make Hunter's Mark worth casting and worth concentrating on. And this feature falls into that category, absolutely. Partial Incorporeal is really, really strong. It's almost broken, since it doesn't shunt you out of an object if you end your turn in one. The only time it shunts you out is if you lose concentration. So you can do the strategy where, you hang out under the floor, and then on your turn, you pop up and then you go back down, and you're basically immune to enemy attacks. Right? It's basically broken. And yes, you take a d10 of damage at the end of your turn, but your 15th level, 5 points of damage around is nothing. Way less than you would be taking if you didn't end up in the floor. And I've seen that strategy used. It's kind of annoying. It's kind of irritating. But there's no denying it's strong. Very, very strong. We also get 3 nice condition immunities here. 3 condition immunities. That's fairly rare for this kind of extended duration. And these are immunities that I will note would prevent some of the tactics that would work to prevent the popping in and out of the floor, making that even more broken. And Frozen Soul is good too. Full damage type immunities are rare, and there is no save on the damage. 2d4 isn't much at 15th level, but you just roll it, they take the damage. And it's going to be 5 points of DPR to single targets and potentially secondary targets on top of that. But I would expect at least 5 DPR from it. This is a much stronger feature. If we look at the other Ranger subclasses, this is a much stronger feature than Misty Wanderer. It's a much stronger feature than Shadowy Dodge. And it is a much stronger feature than Superior Hunter's Defense. The only existing 15th level Ranger subclass feature that I would say it's worth a conversation is Share Spells for the Beastmaster. Share Spells might be better. If you press me into it, I'd say Share Spells is better, but I think they are at least comparable. And so that makes this top tier as a 15th level feature. And I don't know when I'll be playing a 15th level Ranger, but if I was, and I was a Winter Walker, darned right I would start casting Hunter's Mark again, because this isn't really an enhancement to Hunter's Mark. Because the benefits here are just way, 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 way stronger than the base benefit of the Hunter's Mark spell. This is like saying, hey, instead of casting Hunter's Mark with Favored Enemy, instead you can cast this other spell that's a solid 5th level spell. Oh, and I guess you can have Hunter's Mark on there as well at the same time. Why not? And you can do it once per long rest. It is really weird to me that this feature has gotten some hate online, because it is the strongest feature of this subclass by far, and in the running for the strongest Ranger subclass features, period. So 15th level is great for the Winter Walker Ranger. Not terrible. This is a really strong feature. Ignore the fact that you're also getting a d6 damage per attack. That's not the main benefit of your Hunter's Mark when you use this feature. But if we look at the subclass overall, my main concern with this subclass is I'm not sure if Frozen Haunt, which is their strongest feature by far, is enough to actually make me want to take a Ranger to 15th level. But if you're taking 6 or less levels in Ranger, which is very, very common with builds, usually when I see Rangers in a build, it is 5 levels. So this is, very common to be taking less than 7 levels. Then this is middle of the road for Ranger. If you're going to take Ranger higher than that, then that 7th level feature is pretty disappointing, and that definitely drags things down. And 11th level is fine, but I just don't think it's strong enough to lift it back up. So you need to get to 15th level then to feel really good again. Except, would you feel really good playing a straight level 15th level Ranger? That's the question. But that's not the subclass's fault. That's the base class's fault. If I was playing a 15th level one-shot and I decided to make a straight Ranger, which I almost certainly wouldn't, but, maybe I was making good on a lost bet or something, Well, I would definitely consider Winterwalker. So overall, I think the subclass is fine. I was chatting with the Dungeon Dudes a little while back, like when this was released, and neither of them liked this at all. But, we chatted, and I think they eventually acknowledged that their issues with it aren't that it's weak. Their issues with it are a little different than that, which I'm not going to steal their thunder. They'll explain it on their channel. But I think, they looked at it, they didn't like it, so they were thinking, oh, this is weak. And then I'm like, I'm not sure it's weak. And we started chatting back and forth. And then, they kind of came to the conclusion, okay, maybe it's not weak. We just don't like it. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to like it. I don't love that they came up with another subclass to give you temporary hit points, right? And I really don't love that I'm a ranger and I actually decided to take more than 5 levels in ranger, and at level 7 I get not very much. So this is not a perfect subclass. But you know what? Ranger has a lot of not perfect subclasses, and as far as the ranger subclasses go, I'd say this is middle of the road. And speaking of middle of the road, maybe I won't be talking about middle of the road in my next one. It is time to talk about Scion of the Three, which is the rogue subclass from Heroes of Faerun, so I'll do that in my next video. And otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.